Happy Friday and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. DataLabs made easy. I'm Rick Vanover and I'm joined by Corinne Bissett. How you doing, Corinne?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
Doing great. It's been that type of week. Sometimes we're on mute. Who knows? But I tell you one thing, Corinne and I have been on an incredible push to get V11 out, and we'll be talking about that soon on a subsequent episode. But today, it's DataLabs made easy. So again, welcome everyone. And as we always do on the LinkedIn Lives, let us know where you're from. We have a wonderful map, a mapplication, I like to call it, where we're going to light up all the different regions where our guests are from. Let us know what U.S. state or country or major city you're from, and we will make it green, as it were. So DataLabs is the topic, and as we get started, Corinne, what can you start with when you explain DataLabs to somebody? Do you have to define it, or how do you kind of break the ice with a data lab?
Data Labs is what everyone should be doing because it's an entire concept around we always are testing our backups integrities for files, making sure it's not corrupt. But at the end of the day, how do you know it's going to restore properly unless you've tested it? And who has time to do that all the time, every day, or as often as you should be doing it? And the answer is simple: Data Labs.
Right. So let's start with a definition, right? And so depending on where you let us know in the map you're from, we'll either call it a data lab or a data lab. That's kind of an internal joke. I would call it a noun. It's a construct within the Veeam backup and replication product, but the official definition I'll pull out here is that it's a virtual lab, which is an isolated virtual environment in which Veeam backup and replication verifies virtual machines. In the virtual lab, Veeam backup and replication starts VMs from an application group in the verified VM. Now here's the trick, two highlighted parts, the virtual lab and the application group. Those are the two constructs inside of the user interface that you'll have to build to then experience this wonderful data lab and capability. So the virtual lab is a networking assignment of sorts, and the application group is the virtual machine assignment of sorts that says this virtual machine does this role, like as a SQL server, a web server, something like that. And then from there, you can build things like sure backup jobs that can work across backups, replicas, and storage replication. Now, Corinne, you're a technical one. How accurate am I explaining that, or what did I get wrong more specifically?
I don't think you got anything wrong, but I would go as far as to say it's the magic behind the technology. It makes it work.
Okay, that's cool. I agree with that. It is very much one of those art of the possible types of things, right? I've explained Veeam and Data Labs forever. There have been, as long as I've been here at Veeam, this is my 11th year. That was one of the technologies that actually inspired me to come here because I thought this was revolutionary. And I'd also go so far as to say that there's really a lot of things you can do with a data lab. So one of the earliest use cases, in fact, I'll back up. You like that? That's a pun. I will back up and say, why do we have a data lab? Number one reason was it was meant as a construct to verify the recoverability of that which we back up. And it's not because we don't trust the backup. It's just that some things happen on subsequent use cases. Example, I could back up something that's running, but you don't necessarily know about a problem until you reboot. Just try deleting a big chunk of the Windows registry. Sometimes you won't find that out until you reboot, for example. But this technology then becomes a set of capabilities where you can then do other things such as testing updates to operating systems, components, applications, data reuse, and then even testing configuration changes, So there's so much in regards to the possibility here. Corinne, when you look at this list, if you had to think of 3 top-level use cases aside from verifying recoverability, what kind of other things come to you and Ducky's mind about this?
I'm thinking about even just troubleshooting problems or having a on-demand patch environment, something that you can throw off to your dev and have them destroy it every which way, and it's as close as production without that extra cost. It's almost going into an OpEx type of performance or testing environment.
And I agree with you 100%, but I'm actually second guessing myself. Is that indeed Ducky the cat, or is that random other cat?
This is Ducky, of
Ducky.
course, the
Okay.
invasive species.
Oh, the invasive cat, the one with the personality, the one with a taste for showtime. Indeed.
She is a star.
Indeed. So, when I look at the opportunities here with Data Labs, I talk to a lot of organizations that each one of these use cases are good. And then the other side of it is if it can save you time. Like if you have to ask for a change window to make a substantial change for an application and you don't know how it's going to go, Data Lab. If you want to test a security change that's really hard to do in production, Data Lab. Those are kind of things you can really help put it around, wrap it around your mind. I got a note from the producers that the map is ready. Let's take a look at the map application here. And again, if you haven't let us know where you're from, please do. Oh, good showing here. California, Chile, Ghana, Denmark, Czech Republic, Kenya, Ukraine, India, Germany, Pakistan, Swiss, Arizona, France, Brazil, Colombia, South Africa. I'm running out of breath. Morocco, New York. Oh, wow. Thank you all. I'll just throw Ohio on there. We got Corinne and I from Ohio, but we didn't put it in the chat, so I guess we don't count yet.
No,
Good
we're lit up
stuff.
there.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my main preview is it's a focus screen. It's not super resolute. Good stuff. So, Corinne, if we had to put it in product terms, what is the portfolio associated with Data Labs?
So Data Labs is definitely the technology, but we've used that technology that drove you to our company, and we just added it to everything that made sense, not just talking about the isolated environments, but use that same technology to spin up something to do staged restore. I know that you've probably heard of GDPR, and almost everyone on this phone call has, and all of the headaches that come around in the associations with the right to be forgotten or not being able to restore something back to your production environment because it might breach your policy. And we were able to map that into a stage restore type of scenario. And then, of course, secure restore. I know you have a lot to say about ransomware.
Yeah, I think ransomware is one of those scenarios where when you go about a recovery, you may or may not need or know what you need to recover. Staged restore, secure restore, even the base Data Lab are great vehicles to help you recover. We've highlighted a lot of those different things over at the Veeam ransomware education site and the white paper and more. Got a quick question here from Christopher. Good one. Christopher asks, is it useful for an on-prem to Office 365 migration? Is the Data Lab a useful vehicle for that? I'm going to give my answer, and I'm going to let Corinne go next because she knows this one better. Part of me says, I don't think so, but I'll let Corinne advise on that.
So spinning up this technology in a data lab environment would require it being on a storage type that's compatible with the type of database that you're working with. So you'd have to have a backup within backup and replication of the Office 365 server with the direct attached storage. So it is possible, but you would want to look at the scenarios and why you would want to do that in the first place.
Yeah, the only use case I can think of, Christopher, where it would be helpful is I'm just making up scenarios. What if you're on Exchange 2010, something really old, and it's virtualized? Maybe you want to test the upgrade to a more modern version of Exchange before you can even consider the Office 365 migration. You might have to upgrade AD and other things. That might be a use case. But off the top of my head, no, I don't think of a super amazing use case here, but I really love the ideas. And one thing I'll inspire everyone to think about is the Data Lab really depends on the needs and the use cases you have. If you have something that's hard to simulate, if you have something that you don't have a lot of confidence at making changes in production, Data Lab, those are the use cases. So, when it talks about the Data Lab, kind of the art of the possible bit, but if you had to, Corinne, tell us a little bit more about some of the steps you would take around using a Data Lab, whether as a recovery technique or in general, what kind of things come to your mind?
So the first question that comes is, what would it take to recover? And the what it takes to recover is if it will even recover at all. And taking into, say, your stakeholders is a number one way to go about considering how to set up your data labs. And then mimicking what is in your production environment versus your DR environment. If you're doing all of your tests from your DR environment, if you've ever worked with VMware, you understand that, say, a DVS might allow you to be able to recover seamlessly versus having standard switches on both sides of your recovery environment may include or need you to do extra steps for making sure the NICs are attached, making sure they're communicating on the proper network. Getting specific times for your business continuity plan and anyone that needs to be involved with that business continuity plan.
Yeah, so the pivot here is that the data lab can be a vehicle or a mechanism that is used not just for verifying recoverability on premises, but also as part of your DR and business continuity plans. I can't remember which version, it's been a while, but we introduced for VMware environments Sure backup jobs that are sourced from replicas. It's not quite called Sure replica in the user interface, but collectively that's what we call it. Now, that being said, that's a great way to ensure that DR works, DR completes on time, and packaging that technology up has allowed, I think it was actually from version 1 of Veeam Availability Orchestrator, to orchestrate and seamlessly test those types of recoveries. So really important to think about the DR element for a data lab, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it with backups as well. I live in a world where I'd want every recovery point of any type verified. So, Corinne, how does it work? That's the hard part, right? I'll before I go into this, I'll kind of say to everyone that this is probably the hardest capability of Veeam to understand. I'll disclose that. This is one of our most complicated things. But if you give this as an IT pro, if you give this like 2, 3, 4 hours and you understand it, start with a simple environment, simple VM or two, just build on that, it can pay dividends. That's my personal advice there. But, you know, if you had to introduce the components, Corinne, how would you do that?
So starting from the base, you have all kinds of different options for the type of media that you can test this recovery from. You can use your backups. As you mentioned, we can use the replicas, but you can also use your storage snapshots, which could even lessen that impact of spinning something up on your environment and give you an even better performance metrics as to one-to-one type of testing. Once you've determined what type of source media you want to work with, it comes down to what environment do you need to test. And you don't even have to test a group of virtual machines when you're starting out. I encourage you to go through and make an application group of your stakeholders, say an Exchange server with your AD, because AD and Exchange aren't normally going to work all right without your domain controller. And those 3 items in a group would give you a clean test environment. Once you know that's working, start adding in those ad hoc virtual machines. And if you have this similar environment across your entire infrastructure, you can go ahead and test all of your virtual machines within that group against that same application group, and you can get a consistent result across your board.
Yeah, indeed. Think about multi-tiered applications, you know, a database, an app server, a file server that goes with it, but then you might also need a domain controller, right? Now, we don't usually recommend migrating domain controllers around and stuff, but in the case of a virtual lab, it's ephemeral. It goes away at the end. And in this example here, we're looking at a VMware environment where we could power it from a storage snapshot, we could power it from a replica, or we could power it from a backup, a Veeam backup. So we have a lot of flexibility. Over in Hyper-V Town, we would do that same capability, but currently it's only for backups, where the isolated network would be provisioning one or more virtual machines. And it's very versatile. In fact, I remember, this is going way back, but I think it was like, does anyone remember watching when VMware introduced vCenter single sign-on? This was quite a while ago. I want to say it was like in the V5 era. And everyone's like, what was this? It threw us a loop, okay? Because vCenter Server app was always an easy one to upgrade. We had a situation where, and I don't have it prepared, but one individual had a backup of his vCenter server as a virtual machine, and he used the data lab or the virtual lab to test the upgrade because he was like, oh, I've heard about people, you know, having issues with this. And he was like very prepared to go into the upgrade because he had done it there. And I've got countless examples. I've got multi-tiered financial services apps. I've got all kinds of things where this can help you. And then whether it's your replica, whether it's your backup, whether it's from a storage snapshot, you're going to have different performance profiles and usability associated with it. So I think it's really encouraging to check out, and it's included with Veeam Backup and Replication. The one kind of, I guess, catch I would highlight here is that you might actually like it. And what I mean by that is these virtual machines that sit either on this isolated network. If you ever want to like move that back to production, we can't take a data lab and like commit it in. So you'd have to do things like a replication job or a backup of that and then restore it there. But do you have any tips for that, Corinne? Like if you actually have done something in the data lab and you want to keep it, I recommend taking a backup or a replica. But do you have any tricks for that?
So that's an excellent point. We use a backend service to emulate and publish a virtual machine to your host. So this is just a virtual machine in your environment that's been kind of carved out in its own isolated segment. So it is still there doing any type of migration process, or you can vMotion that within VMware back to your production environment completely outside of the software if that's what you choose or whatever process that you'd like to use. Replica is a good idea, but I have seen vMotion do just wonders if you have
the license for it. Yeah, that's a good point. vMotion. I didn't even think about that. I live in a world now where I kind of like, well, let's do it with a Veeam technology. Let's back it up. Let's replicate it. But yeah, of course, hypervisor migration, storage migration would do it too.
Well, to your point of you might just like it, I don't think we should leave here without talking about Veeam Availability for Orchestrator.
Yeah,
the technology that makes it all-inclusive and takes you to the next level of business continuity and automated reports so that you can give those to all of your stakeholders with all of the testing that was done.
Exactly. That's a very good point. So again, what if you like it? Meaning, oh, wow, I did verify that my DR can come up in 4 hours as I've told the business. And I've done that all by hand. Well, that's great. But what about tomorrow when, we're dealing with 10% change rate? And what about 3 months from now when we have 25% more workloads and stuff like that? That's where the Veeam Availability Orchestrator will help you out because it will automate the reporting and testing of that, powered by DataLabs. Ooh, I kind of like the sound of that. Good stuff. Let's take another look at the application real quick. Let's pull that up. We had a lot of good additional responses. Let's see. Here we go. We had Tunisia, Texas, the UK, Romania, Sweden, Mexico, Netherlands, Turkey, and Zambia. Hey, welcome everyone. I really appreciate everyone joining us here today. So thanks for tuning in to LinkedIn Live. I really love seeing how we light this up. Zoom in on India and Africa there. Looks great. Thank you so much. Main of Europe, great, awesome. Turkey represent. We have a lot of fans in Turkey. South America, good stuff. I was just yesterday was on with the Brazil user group online. So represent, good stuff. All right. Well, hey, I hope you've liked what you've seen here. And there's so much more to DataLabs. And I wanted to put up some resources here. And one of the producers, Christian, will probably share some of these links in the chat. 2 sets of things I want to highlight your attention to. One is the white paper series. So VEE.am/DataLab series papers. This short URL, which is actually kind of long, but that's okay. It's a short but long URL. That is actually a 3-part series of white papers that walk you through everything from multi-host and the distributed virtual switch and from a backup, from a storage snapshot, from a replica. It's all there. And then some full-length videos. If you want to see someone configure it in their lab, in the user interface, how does it look? How does it look in Veeam? How does it look in VMware? These 2 sets of links here in the video world will help you. And if you're ever at YouTube, just go to the Veeam channel and search for a data lab, and you'll find these 2. Do you have a favorite resource, Corinne, around the data lab to like consume stuff?
Yeah, there's an article out there that's actually a knowledge-based article which gives a great step-by-step walkthrough. And there's also a KB out there, which I'm sure we can get gathered up here for how to do it and all of the catches that you might run into, the common mistakes, so you can avoid those yourself.
KB loves a KB. That's her initials as well. So internal joke there. So good stuff. Thank you, Corinne. And, one other thing I want to draw everyone's attention to that everyone here at Veeam is working hard to deliver the biggest release in our history, V11. We are in the final pushes here, had a great internal milestone yesterday for partners, and we're preparing diligently for on the 24th. We're going to have the launch event, go.veeam.com/V11. Join us. You won't want to miss it. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, on behalf of everyone here, I want to appreciate your attendance here. Thank you all for letting us know about the maps, where your location is. And I want to give a shout out to the Monday show. Again, 12 noon New York time, LinkedIn Live, the Dave and Jason show. We'll be talking about DR in the cloud, part of the Act 2 journey, based on some of the latest research. Good stuff. Corinne, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. And again, these awesome links, and on behalf of the Global Veeam team and the marketing producers, that concludes today's attendance, and thank you for watching.